get us going whenever you can.
Whenever I can get us going.
Yeah.
Ms. Berry.
Here.
Ms. Casper.
Here.
Ms. Flom is absent. Mr. Hammonds.
Present.
Ms. Myers.
Here.
And Mr. Bella.
Okay. Do we have any?
No public comments.
Bart? So exciting.
Jump in here. I believe we have a video that we're going to share with you in our student spotlight.
I feel like a garden is really important to have in a school because it just gives kids a different perspective on school and it gives them something really fun to do.
I think the fact that this is something that EPIC has done through all its different branches and locations is really cool.
This is the garden that we're in the progress of starting for this summer that we'll be ready to harvest in the fall, and then we'll start over in the fall and do a winter garden that we'll harvest in the spring.
We've got some sunflower seeds that are starting to sprout. We have some peppermint that has survived.
My favorite thing about it is that I could be watering them and seeing the life cycle of them.
Students can come help out with it whenever they want, and you can just feel good knowing that you're doing something for your planet, and I think that that's really important.
For one thing, since starting the project, more kids have gotten involved with helping to maintain, making sure water levels are checked.
I come in almost every day and come and look and see if everything's doing okay.
I knew it was something that I wanted to be involved in, something that was, very beneficial for our students and the community as a whole.
How we did this is we put a seed in there and then we watered it and then we kept it in the seed.
We put them in little compartments instead of actual ground because it's hydroponics.
We put soil in them and then we put the seeds in and then it goes to roots and then it sprouts.
Also, it was fun having my friends here with me because then we could all look at them and take out the weeds.
We have battled some elements with geese and caterpillars and little hands, but we keep reseeding and retrying again.
There's a lot of stuff in the garden that I really like. I really like the little stones that they have here. And it's good for the ecosystem too because the bees can come get the flowers and stuff.
With our lettuce, it grows really quickly. We are using that as kind of one of our main projects to do salad day.
We cut the lettuce, as you can see behind me. Then we go to the teacher's lounge and wash it off, make it all nice and crisp, when we eat it.
It's very cool and because it's in the science room and it teaches us about planting. My favorite thing about this garden is helping them.
It will be a really good learning experience for many students.
The best experience I've witnessed this year with the Tower Garden was we all learned something new this year.
I think it's a great outlet, great opportunity for us to learn more about life and how it can benefit our world.
Really just teach the kids how to grow their own vegetables and let them try new vegetables that they wouldn't be able to experience in different environments at home. And just get their fingers in the dirt.
We have kids all around the area that are learning how to grow their own food and the time and the effort it takes, but also how rewarding it is to be able to gain those skills and hopefully use those skills in their own lives and in their own homes.
Yeah, so that is a classic example of hands-on kinesthetic learning, and our learning centers do a fantastic job, both in Oklahoma and Tulsa County, of taking learning and making a real life example for these kids. So it's literally turning, learning into this laboratory for kids to be able to get their hands dirty and experiment. And you looked at some of the concepts, not just the science behind it and photosynthesis and things like that, but just how about vertical farming? And you think about it, which is sometimes referred to as urban farming. You look at the possibilities and the potential in the future in terms of climate change and all the things that are coming down the pipe, the benefits of vertical farming for all communities is something that I think we can be very proud of. And so introducing our students, the next generation, to that is something that I'm incredibly proud of. So really appreciate our learning centers.
Thank you. Do we have anything from the Finance Committee, Trevor?
No, we met and talked about the items that are on the agenda for later on. We'll discuss those when they come up.
And what about you, Sarah? Do you have anything? For me? No? Okay. And it looks like we have consideration and possible action on the amended and restated bylaws. Brandon?
All right, so it's that time again where we are going to elect board officers to start the new school year that begins July 1st. And in the current bylaws that were created by a consultant a long time ago, there was a slight conflict. And so we need to clarify that. And we can clarify that in one of two ways. One is continuing with the option that we have had in place, and that option is every year we will elect a board member to be chair, vice chair, secretary. Now, the conflict came because the bylaws said we have to do this every year, yet they say the terms are 2 years. So we need to reconcile that. So if you choose option one, that means everybody's eligible for any of the positions. And we'll just vote on that, we'll set those positions, and then we'll just come back next month and decide if we want these terms to be 2 or 1 and how we want to amend the bylaws. The second option is that we just go to a standard rotating system where when we provide information to the State Department of Education, they always ask, what is the board seat? And apparently they just have one form for brick and mortar and not necessarily for charter schools. But what we would be doing is we'd assign the seats 1 through 6 and then just have number 1 be chair, 2 vice chair, 3 secretary, and each year you just move up 1 step. And that way you don't have to worry about who's going to elect whom or whatever. You just know the rotation. And nobody has to serve. If you don't want to, you're welcome to say, I just step aside and let the next person come up. But this way, we won't have to worry about the voting process. It'll take care of itself. So any questions? Mike?
With option 2, will it, I'm assuming it's going to involve changing the bylaws as well?
And that's the item on the agenda. And so
if we voted for option 2, we would change the bylaws, and that would go into effect as of this meeting?
correct. Well, yeah, go into effect this meeting, which would take effect with the officers July 1. So for that option, if you want to do the rotating board members, we would just vote to approve item B. And if you don't, you vote no on item B, and that means we'll just go to item C and elect officers.
Okay, so for purposes of this action item, do we need to vote?
Yes, on item 2B, you are voting, do you want to go to a set, fixed, rotating board position where the board positions are fixed and they just rotate automatically every year?
I would like to go to that.
So I would move to approve item 2B.
I second that motion.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Flom is absent. Mr. Hammonds?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
And Mr. Vella?
Yes.
All right, we're to C.
C, it takes care of itself, so we will not need that item.
So no action there.
No, so we are on D.
All right, we get to hear discussion by Dr. Summers about our governance.
It should be. Yeah, we're good. Well, good afternoon. It's June already. Do you believe that? 6 months in and moving fast. Great year that we had this year for EPIC. The governance side, the advanced government side, I want to start with that slide by saying that there are 2 big parts to your policy governance, and if you haven't read over that, I would encourage you to do so. One of them is ends, what you hope to accomplish as a school district. And you've identified the Future Ready graduate skill sets as the key focus for what you want to achieve, and plus your aspirations. I've got news for you that you're going to be excited coming in the near future. There's some really big things that EPIC are working on that Future Ready graduate that will further set you apart from a whole lot of other operations that are serving kids in the country. The ENDS policies are about performance. So today will be about the last month that you have predictive measures. You will soon have your first round of judgment measures, which are your state assessments that should come in August or September if everything works right at the State Department of Education. And we've got a little hint of an introduction today on that front. The other part of your policies is means, and you set forth a set of expectations for the administration. And where you see that play itself out is in all the compliance and all the rules and regulations that roll through the process. Brandon stays awake at night thinking about all of those things in detail. But I've got news for you. This year has been an incredible year for EPIC in complying with and meeting expectations of external agencies and responsibilities and commissions. So you've had a really good year. Next slide. Next slide is what you have previously said you want to see from the administration and the school district, and I kind of cover part of it. I cover part of it, and other people cover other parts of it. I would encourage you to think about taking a look at this as a board just to see if it still fits with what you actually want to know and want to see about the school district. There's lots of things to know and learn about performance and accountability, and so anytime that you want to make adjustments, I'd recommend that you do some review. Next slide. So here it is, the end of the year. The performance, where you ended is the gray bar. You are at the highest the school district's done in 3 years. The last bar looks just like the next to last bar because it's the same. State testing kind of consumes May, and so there isn't much formative assessment that occurs in that last month. But you ended up with 31%. Our target was around 45%. So you see, or 35% rather, so you're pretty close to where you wanted to be. Why is that important? This was a predictor, a predictive measure for achieving somewhere close to the 50th percentile in the state of Oklahoma. So 50%, about halfway between highest performing schools and poorest performing. And today we're going to, in just a little bit, we're going to take a look at where you are now and where you're trying to get to on that performance. This information is incredibly valuable down into the organization. They've got lots of other data, but for you, the important thing is that you've been able to watch all the way through the year that you're making progress and that you're ahead of where you were in previous years. Next slide. Same thing for math. Math did extremely well towards the end of the year. You'll remember that it was struggling a little bit early February or so, but it pulled itself out and has done a real nice job for the year. Questions on these two measures before we move on?
Just to refresh my memory from the last meeting, the mastery refers to the students passing the test on the first try.
It refers to the student achieving mastery of the assessments. Sometimes those assessments occur within the instructional process, and when they don't succeed, then there's some reteaching and reinstruction and rework to make sure that they learn that. And so this is a percentage of the students that have mastered that particular set of standards.
Okay.
So it may be more than one assessment.
Okay.
Yes. Great question. And why is that important? Because these are formative measures. These are telling us where the students are struggling or having a challenge. What's the important thing is that they actually know and can achieve. For us, the school district has to think about having the students prepared to face life and have a good job and get things done in life, and that's achievement. Here, we're trying to figure out what isn't occurring and help students succeed, and that's where EPIC has really perfected and continues to perfect its process of focusing on the student's achievement over the long term. So, good question. Matt, next slide. The next one is a formative measure or predictive measure. We've seen this all year long, still ended the year pretty strongly. If you think about the typical school situation, if you remember back when you were a freshman or a sophomore or maybe a 7th grader, some of us have a harder time remembering that than others, but it was hard to stay focused and engaged all the way to the very end. But they did do pretty well here. Especially for a virtual school where lots of opportunities might have availed themselves, that could find themselves working on things other than school. So did an excellent job of that measure. Next slide. Now, these are about the testing results. This is just a set of understandings of how well state testing went. As a reminder, here are the testing sites. Those testing sites are parallel with a lot of the actual enrollment. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see where all the enrollment for EPIC resides. You'll see big chunks of them in Oklahoma City, of course, and Tulsa. And then work your way out across the state. You have students enrolled in all parts of the state, and the state testing places, locations were located effectively for each one of those. Next slide. The next slide has lots of numbers on it, but here's the percentage of students that were supposed to be tested that were actually tested at the site. So why would you not show up for a test? Well, because you might have been sick that day. There might be absences. There may be any number of problems. These are incredibly high percentages for even bricks and mortar, but if you think about trying to track down and manage to get students that are all across the entire state to a particular location, 90% of the sites had a 97% or better, so less than 3% of the students missed the assessment process. Incredibly good.
So would that be based upon enrollment, that may be just like 1 or 2 students?
Correct. That's right. Yeah. If you think about attendance, typical attendance in schools, even without chronic absenteeism that we're experiencing now across the country, you usually think of 3% as being exceptional, 5 to 7% being pretty reasonable. Once you drop below that 90% is when you get nervous. And so if you kind of pretend to think about absences and presence, the lowest score you had, the lowest completion rate you had was 94%, which is extremely good. Is that helpful?
Yeah, thank you.
Next slide just gives you the same exact data, except it tells you on the grade levels. You'll notice that high school fell a little short at 96%, but all the rest of them were at 90%, 98% or better. And I'll ask everybody to remember when you were teenagers in high school compared to 3rd through 8th grade. It's a little easier to keep track. Any questions on the testing? This is not the passage rate. This is just the percent of students that took the assessments. And this is an exceptionally good year for EPIC in this area. Next slide. Now, just a little hint, preliminary. I want you to write that down in your mind, preliminary. The state provided the results. Couldn't resist sharing it with you. You'll have official results in a little bit, but science and history, they put their data out in pretty good shape. And what's really pretty is when the blue bar, which was from last year, is shorter than the red bar, which is this year, or the orange bar this year. That's a good thing. Had a 4% gain in science, and by the way, you do quite well at science compared to the rest of the state. You maybe recall that in the past. History, 27% to 30%. that is for this past year. So congratulations to the folks. Now, some of them are getting nervous that we're biasing things and we could jinx the rest of the results, but I think based on our formative assessments, I'm predicting that you're going to see similar things happen with the rest of the data. Let's shift backwards a year, though, and so forget about this past year, go back to 2023, and I want to show you and get it set up for when we do this again, when the data comes out for 2024, is where does EPIC stand in relation to every other school district in the state of Oklahoma? Does that kind of make sense? Kind of take a look. So let's take a look at the next slide. There's a set of measures that if you find on the state report card for Oklahoma, they do a calculation and they call it a performance index value. Now, it's not an actual percent passage rate. It's a combination of achieving goals with under the subpopulations, economically disadvantaged, IEP students, a number of variations, along with achievement. So it's a calculated number, but it comes from the State Department of Education, and you can find it on their website. What we did was we pulled the data for all the schools, so this is how many schools in each one of these columns, and we start with the lowest performance on the index to the highest. The highest is 106.6, is in the high range. So that number shows you where you stand with other school districts. So each one of these five school districts here, 33 school districts here. EPIC sat right in this column right here for a composite for science, math, reading, all of the assessments. It sits right in this category here, which is at about the 33rd percentile. About 1/3 of the schools of Oklahoma perform less well on these measures than you do, about 2/3 ahead of you. And you have been inching your way up for the last couple of years, and I'm anxious to see where it lands this coming year. To give you a frame of reference, the other two schools that are of similar size to EPIC, Oklahoma City and Tulsa, they're in these 33 in the lowest performing categories. First question is, does that kind of make sense? This is what year? It's not this year's results, it's from a year ago. So we'll see what happens in the next, when we get the results from this year. Let's go to the next slide. The next slide is your ELA index. So the other one was composite, every performance measure in all at one time. I kind of like this graph because it's a sign that you're moving up in the world in ELA. And what's interesting when you look at the data, reading and ELA results are making real progress underlying inside the school district. Now this was a year ago, so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But you can tell that EPIC lands in a bar that's pretty close to the middle of the distribution. So you're closer to 40, 45 percentile. You'd like to be somewhere in this column or higher so that you start putting more schools behind you than in front of you. But again, there's a lot of schools that are performing less well to EPIC. Again, Oklahoma City and Tulsa, now they come into that third category. There's just a few in those lower two categories. So that is English language arts. Let's go to the next slide. Always like to start with the good news. Now, the opportunity for improvement. And it's nice to know this is when did these results occur? From a year ago. So Justin and his team and all the instructional leaders and all the people that are involved with the educational process have been working hard on math. So we'll see where this goes for this year's results. But you're still about that 30th percentile in this column. Oklahoma City and Tulsa, we're a little closer to you on math performance. As much to do with needing to move math up the ranks than than down. You'll notice that the scores in mathematics are a little bit tough all the way around. Questions? I got a question for you. Is that useful to see? Is that interesting at all to see where you stand?
Yes.
I feel like it gives us, I mean, I like the data.
Cool. For sure. Well, this is what we're working for. It's performance internal to yourself year over year. It's making progress against the expectations of the world, but it's also about how well are our students going to compete in the marketplace when they graduate. And if you remember, your aspiration number one is future ready and in demand. So students that come into these performance levels up in the other areas are in demand. So that's what we're working with. And that is the extent of the presentation. Comments, questions?
Are we gonna get this updated when we have the new data, and when will we have it?
We would normally expect it to be September, but it is a state problem, so it's hard to tell when they come. But as soon as you get the results, we will do that. And in future years, we'll start being able to have trend lines on whether we're making more progress or less progress on the percentile ranking.
Dr. Summers, does this data include private schools as well, or just public schools?
This is just public schools. That's the way the State Department puts it up. Private schools don't have these measures as yet, so there's a little more. You do find charter schools in this, so the regular public schools are in the whole mix, but private schools don't have that report card process at this juncture.
I think what I'm most, in all of our metrics, I'm interested in how we're competing in the marketplace, and and how we compare in our area. But I also think, like, the more discreet we can be and the more focused we can be on improvement over goal, I think is helpful just for everyone's patterning. So I appreciate it.
It's kind of fun there's a lot of people have different views of where their performance stands in the rest of the world, and it's kind of nice. It's not a judgment measure as much as it is an opportunity to find out where the high performers are and go seek the ways to do things better. And eventually, remember, in continuous improvement and innovation, when you get to be the top of the food chain in your little pond, you got to go find a bigger pond. So hopefully someday we'll have to go look at the national data and see where you rank on that process. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it looks like, does anybody need a break? We good? Keep going? Okay, let's move on and get back to Bart.
Yeah, if you'll throw up our slide. Thank you, Jeremy. Superintendent's update for June 13th, 2024. Let's take a look at what's going on. There's our 5 aspirations. We'll talk about those here in just a little bit. Next slide. So here's our final principal standard mastery for May of 2024. These are our principals who are leading the way in terms of the formatives that Bob just spoke of, and making sure that our students are being taught, but also measured with regards to formative completion and then formative mastery. So I want to give a shout out to our ELA formative completion leaders, OKC Mid-High, Sheila Sanders, Jeff Upton, Amanda Pilgrim, all of our learning centers there, and then Emily Shackelford and Ricky Herbert. Then ELA formative mastery, Sheila Sanders, Lori Gray, and Amanda Ramsey. And then on the math side, that Bob also showed you, Oklahoma City Mid-High, Sheila Sanders, Amanda Pilgrim, Emily Shackelford, Donna Buck, and then for math formative mastery, Tulsa Early Learning Center, Amanda Pilgrim, Jalinda Moss, and April Golden. Really appreciate our principals for their hard work this year and making sure that, that we are tracking the mastery of Oklahoma academic standards. So big shout out to them. EPIC is growing. So I want to give a shout out to Deputy Superintendent of Operations, Shauna Sawkill. The operations team's been working extremely hard this last year to grow as many EPIC microsites and partner sites as possible around the state of Oklahoma. We now have 32 of Oklahoma's 77 counties, we've got microsites in there. And so we have a footprint, and you can see where they are located. And just so you know, there was some strategy behind that. So we went with the top enrolled counties and then just began to work our way down. And so what we're trying to do is to create a physical footprint in each of Oklahoma's 77 counties. It's going to be a multi-year process, but that way our teachers in those counties that reside in those counties will have a place that is dedicated to them and their students that they can take, whether it's for benchmark testing, whether it's for formative testing, whether it's just one-on-one, small group, whole group, plus our Common Academy will meet multiple times each week in those locations. So for our families that want to have a face-to-face connection and some social stimulation for their students, they're now going to be able to have that. And we'll be offering Comet in, I believe, 40 of Oklahoma's 77 counties next year. So half of Oklahoma's counties will have a Comet Academy for parents who want more social interaction for their students. So very proud of our operations team. They've worked very, very hard. And people don't understand what goes into creating a microsite, from the identification of it to the build out of it, and we're going to talk about that today too, but then the branding of it, and then outfitting the actual place so that it looks like this, where we have tables, chairs, and things like that, so that education can occur, that face-to-face education can occur. That's one of the lessons we learned coming out of the pandemic, is that some students need social interaction and to be around their peers, and so it's good for their mental health, it's good for them socially, and we think it's going to be good for them academically as well. So very proud of the growth that we've seen throughout the state of Oklahoma, and we'll just keep chipping away at it.
I noticed, Bart, on one of Bob's maps, the colors of density of population. It looks like Ottawa County has a fairly large compared for a small county.
It does.
I just found that remarkable.
Yeah, you know, when we have these heat maps that we look
Yeah,
at every
that's what I
single
was
month,
looking
and so basically what we found is that our population of enrollment follows I-40 and I-35, so I-35 and then I-40, and most of our enrollment's there, but you will find communities like Ottawa County. I'll give you a couple more. Durant is heavily populated proportionally from what our other counties are, but you'll find these pockets where, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's a reflection on us or a reflection on the local schools that are in those communities, there seems to be more demand.
Yeah, and there's two holes where you would think there would be two holes because people live there on large farms. Is that northwest Oklahoma and that southeast, and what is that, LaFleur and Poteau?
That's right.
County, because there's not a big population there.
That's correct.
It's interesting.
I love Epics model for so many reasons, but seeing our growth over this map and knowing that these students have these circles that they can go to is something that genuinely makes me feel like we're providing safety.
Yes.
And I think that's key.
Yes.
I saw one when I was in Ada.
Did you?
At our health center. The strip center,
Yeah, yeah. So it's not just that, it's also community, building community in these areas, and that's something that we're really focused on for our families. So excited about that.
It sounds like we're cleaning the ductwork or something. Okay, just
Perfect.
No, nothing bad is happening.
No, nothing bad is happening. They are sanding the floors upstairs. Yeah, so anyway, I thought you all would find that. And just Mike and everybody else that's watching online, if you're not sure the difference between a microsite and a partner site is a site that we don't own, that we lease, but it could be a church, it could be another organization is in that proximity, and they own it, and we lease that from them. But a microsite is actually a commercial space that we lease and we control that environment. So our goal is to work towards microsites, but it's challenging, particularly as you get into the more rural communities. Commercial real estate is not as prevalent as it is in Oklahoma City and Tulsa and whatnot. So these partner sites have been incredibly helpful, but we're working towards getting microsites that we can control. We can put up our security cameras, we can put fobs on the doors and things like that. And so there's a lot that goes into opening these sites, but I had an opportunity at graduation to visit with several of our teachers that were volunteering their time there, and they are stinking excited when they see a microsite because now they're going to have a dedicated space with which to educate the children. So, next slide. This is cool. So this one you all have not heard of because we have not publicly announced this. But we were contacted by Dr. Cecilia Robinson Woods, who is the superintendent of Millwood Public Schools, about the possibility of a partnership for the 24-25 school year. And so she would like EPIC to provide synchronous online instruction for her high school, for some of her high school students. And so we met a couple weeks ago and sat down and just kind of visited with her and her staff, and she visited with our team, and we just kind of collaborated together on, you know, we're not exactly designed to do this, but with Brandon's help and the legal team, could we form a cooperative agreement with Millwood Public Schools? Because keep in mind, this board, the aspirations, one of the aspirations that you created is building and supporting the community is evident in all aspects of EPIC. And so the community has reached out to us to help support them. And so we have verbally agreed that we're going to run a pilot with Millwood Public Schools starting this year. And so excited about being able to help educate kiddos across the state of Oklahoma, excited about being able to work cooperatively and collaboratively with another traditional brick and mortar school in our community, and being able to share best practices. And so appreciate Dr. Cecilia Robinson Woods for reaching out, and look forward to the potential partnership with our friends in traditional brick and mortar school. Yes, Mike?
How many schools does that entail?
Say
And how
again?
many schools are involved in the Millwood Public Schools?
Well, it would just be one school district, yes, and we're going to start the pilot with just high school age students and the subject of math. So it'll probably be geometry, algebra 1, we may do some algebra 2, but it's providing synchronous instruction 4 days a week to her high school kiddos. So, we're excited about the potential partnership with them and what that can look like. So I will come back, I promise, in the fall with an update on how's it going, whatnot. But we could, you know, if it goes well, and Dr. Cecilia Robinson Woods wants to, we could look to expand that partnership with her to serve even more students in different subjects that may be challenging for them to staff. So excited about that. Go ahead.
So this is an ignorant question. Millwood is not part of Oklahoma City Public Schools.
No.
They're their own independent school district in northeast Oklahoma by the capital.
That is
over
correct.
there. Okay,
Yep.
very cool.
Yeah. Any other questions before we move on?
I appreciate the safety and trust there
Yeah.
greatly.
Absolutely. Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, next. So we've got an admin retreat coming up here. So the annual EPIC Administrative Retreat, which we have renamed the Petite Retreat, will take place at the Oklahoma City Convention Center on Tuesday, June 18th. Shauna came up with that name, by the way. Tuesday, June 18th, more than 600 EPIC employees are expected to attend, where we'll have a guest speaker and breakout sessions. And one of the things we're going to be doing is some goal setting for the 24-25 school year, and then we're going to be talking about measurements and key performance indicators and things like that that are in alignment with our Baldrige efforts. And so every department at EPIC will be represented there, and we will be breaking out and coming up with both goals and measures. And so excited to be able to spend some time next week with hundreds of our EPIC employees. They do a wonderful job, and get ready for the 24-25 school year. Next slide. Here's some end of the year celebrations. Just wanted to, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. So we served more than 1,300 guests at 2 celebrations in Norman and Glenpool. Everyone enjoyed their activities and time with the EPIC families as they celebrated the completion of the school year. And so this is very common. You see this in traditional brick and mortar, but this is really our first time to really do this on a large scale, to be able to serve thousands of our students and be able to just kind of celebrate the end of the school year and wrap it up while the weather is nice. Next slide. This is kind of cool. We have some really talented students at EPIC in a variety of ways. And so London Ledbetter, an EPIC Charter School senior, designed an 11 by 48 mural for a wall in Shawnee, my hometown, collaborating with city officials and building owner for design approval, along with 2 other Gordon Cooper Technology Center students. She painted the mural to create a photo opportunity in the downtown area, and as part of a Skills USA project, the team developed promotional items and displays to encourage people to visit the downtown area there in Shawnee and shop locally. Their project earned first place at the Skills USA state competition, and they're going to compete at the national level in June in Atlanta, Georgia. And so we just wanted to give a shout out to London. You know, Bob talked about that first aspiration that EPIC graduates will be future ready and in demand. And that young lady is going to be in demand. Next slide. Color Run. So EPIC's first ever Healthy Habits Color Run was held on Friday, May 10th at Mitch Park in Edmond. So EPIC students and families were able to choose to participate in a 5K color run or a 1-mile Fun Run Walk. And here are some of the pictures from it. Some cute kiddos. And we had some graduations. We had six graduations that just occurred. So EPIC graduated 3,633 kids actually walked. And that's for the 23-24 school year, academic year. Ceremonies were held both in Tulsa and the Oklahoma City area. It was actually Norman at OU. And you can see pictures from there. And then obviously we streamed those live. And so you can watch the videos and the kiddos in their caps and gown. And it's always fun to see our students that we have the privilege to serve. And the sort of the one takeaway that I have every single year, is just an annual reminder, is of the diversity of the students that we serve. And they are all over the spectrum. But it is really a beautiful opportunity to honor their achievement, and then to get an opportunity to visit with their families and to see how proud they are of these kiddos getting across the finish line. So really, really well done. Appreciate our events team for helping to put that on. And it was just, all 6 ceremonies were just seamless.
Yeah.
Next one. Here's an interesting statistic. So Rise Academy, so keep in mind, for those of you who are watching online, Rise Academy is a model at EPIC dedicated exclusively to students that have fallen behind. So if they are credit deficient, high school age students that are credit deficient, just to be admitted into the program, you have to meet a certain threshold. And you can see the progress that it was made. 164 students made progress toward returning to the appropriate grade level, getting back on cohort. 53 graduates and rising. 1,634.5 total credits earned. 198 students utilizing our counseling support and wraparound services. 28 students received support from our school-based DHS social services. And then on the far right, you can see the calculated cohort, current grade levels, and then current age of the students that we serve. And so this is one of the most vulnerable populations in the state of Oklahoma. And so to see the great work that our staff is doing specifically with this group is encouraging, and it sets the table for our Pathways program as well. Next slide. Here's some graduate pictures. Just wanted to show those to you so you can see some of the diversity that I was talking about in the kiddos that we serve. And our staff. Our staff does such a wonderful job at those graduations of making those kids feel welcome and at home and comfortable. And anxiety is real, and some of our students struggle with, being in a public place, with thousands of other people. And our entire team does such a wonderful job of celebrating the success of these students and recognizing their excellence. Next slide. So we're going to show you one of our students, Isabella Ratcliffe, and let you see and hear from her with regards to her testimony and one of the specific hardships that she struggled with, that thousands of Oklahoma children across the state struggle with as well. Go ahead, Jeremy.
It was a whirlwind, a lot of emotion, a lot of sleepless nights. It's definitely like, that's not happening. That happens to other people. She had acute promyelocytic leukemia. And I don't even remember which number of rounds it was of chemo. We were doing this little game with her alphabet, and I asked her to find the letter that made whatever sound it was. And she had no idea.
I couldn't remember things that happened before. My mind not making memories at all made a lot of things a lot harder because I had to relearn everything.
Some speech pathologist we went to, she was like, I really think she falls into dyslexia. I do a program called Take Flight. And we had been talking with Epic that whole summer. We had had a teacher, and I'm on the phone with her. I'm already probably in tears. And I'm like, they're saying it's this, and there's this curriculum. Is that something we can use our learning fund on? Oh, absolutely, we can do that. But I also use a program called Take Flight. And I just burst out in tears because that's what I knew that we needed. And Epic provided it. And we didn't have to get a third job to pay for it, and it changed her life.
I feel like I could not be where I am in life if I didn't have Epic. We tried everything to make reading specifically click. It was only when I was in Epic and I had that curriculum that was made for dyslexia that I could understand.
Isabel came in as a third grade non-reader to the point where like we are a few years ago where she was past grade level. When you think about the beginning, I don't know how many of us thought we would ever get there. I'm grateful that Epic was there for her.
So that's just one example of thousands of students
It was a whirlwind.
whose lives are being
And
changed.
it was a
because of
whirlwind.
Epic.
A lot of-
So we're really, really proud of Isabella and her achievement and the fact that she was able to get across the finish line. But you just see some of the adversity, and you begin to understand why a school like Epic exists. Because of people that are in and out of hospitals and doctor visits and things like that. And then when you compound that with dyslexia, can you imagine, and having to relearn how to read? It's incredible. What an incredible testimony, a strong young lady there, and just a powerful testimony towards hope, towards school choice, and the individualization that Epic provides its students, the ability to be able to meet them right where they're at, in whatever those circumstances are. And so incredibly proud of our kiddos that got across the finish line this year, and we've got thousands more to work on next year. So that's it for me.
Wow. That was impressive. What an impressive student. Yeah. And to be able to inspire someone to continue after they've suffered that loss is a testament to your organization.
Strong. Thank you.
All right, it looks like we get to hear from Janice. It's her favorite thing to do.
Good afternoon, board. So we get to do history, and then we get to do present, and then we get to do future. So quite a bit of finance today. We'll try to make it as painless as possible. First is the financial review for the end of April. At the end of April, everything was looking really good with a cash balance of $61.3 million and a fund balance of just under $59 million. And we're almost hitting that goal on the revenue. We're just sliding right over it. That doesn't give me any concern at all, though. So we're doing great. And the expenses are still way under budget, which is awesome, which doesn't make sense considering what I'm about to do is ask for more money in the budget, but I'll explain all of that in just a minute. Everything here looks normal. I'm totally expecting a little bit of a downward trend in May and June on our some of our claims and things. We're filing those a little late so that money can come in July, because that's the month we don't have state aid, and it just keeps the cash flow going. So everything here is as expected. You're going to see that big jump up in June again when we pay our teacher bonuses. But overall, that blue is pretty steady. If you compare the volatility from prior years to this year, that's very comforting from my position. All right. If there are any questions about the financial report that's in your packet, I'd be happy to answer those before we move on to the next thing.
And do we vote on accepting the financial statements right now? So I would move to approve the financial statements as presented.
Second.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Phalm is absent. Mr. Hammonds?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
And Mr. Vella?
Yes.
All right, next up is an amendment for the 23-24 budget. We talked about doing this in January, and I said, no, let's wait, because we had a midterm adjustment and there was more revenue. But unless we're gonna spend more than was originally approved, there's no reason to do a new budget. We talked about it again in February. I was like, no, we're still good. We talked about it in March. We're still good. We talked about it in April. I was getting a little itchy. We talked about it in May. I was getting really itchy. So here we are. So here's the scenario. We actually have a $4.4 million increase request in your packet today for the current year, which will end in about 2.5, 3 weeks for us. We did have a switch. If you look at the categories, you can see where we had about 4 million here and we're moving it up there. There's some things that are just moving around, but overall, the revenue is going up 1.8 million. But what you're voting on is the expenditures from 299, 893, 784 to 304, 297, 163. That's what the request is today. Still a very healthy fund balance. So here's the tricky part. I don't actually think this is where we're going to end, but I need to lift the ceiling so that I have some flexibility for the next couple of weeks because we have a lot of open POs and I don't know which POs are going to have invoices and goods received before June 30th and which won't. Our payroll is higher than normal at this time of year because we've taken a lot of things in-house and we're doing transitions. For example, the telecom transition, we're paying telecom and our people because we're overlapping the services so that we can do everything. So there's some of that that is higher than the original budget, but I think overall the budget will be under the original budget. But there's this period of time where it's kind of sticky. So I'm requesting an increase in the budget so that it's not so sticky and that there's not, because we don't see you again until next fiscal year. And if I get into a situation where we can't pay payroll unless we liquidate a bunch of expenses, there's thousands of POs and this is just a lot less complicated. So I fully expect to come back to you next month and say, hey, thanks for that wiggle room. We didn't need it. Here's where we ended up. But as of today, we need to do the increase. And there is a purchase order increase for overall payroll in your packet as well today that coincides with this 4.4 million. Is that making sense? I can answer any questions or if there are any comments about this piece from anyone.
We have the 4 million, but it wasn't budgeted. You need the space in the room just in case. We're gonna move the ceiling.
A little bit.
But we've got the money, we're just moving the ability to spend it, correct?
To encumber it, and we could spend it, but I don't think we will. But what we're really doing is giving us a little bit of a higher ceiling for the encumbrances so that we can get through the last little bit. Then we're closed the last week of June, first week of July. Invoices come in, all the dust settles in July. We'll start liquidating what's left on those POs. And I do think this will feel like it wasn't necessary, but I need to be able to encumber all of it for a time and then go from there. It's still almost a 16% carryover, even if we spent it all, which I do not believe we will, which is incredibly healthy. So this isn't a huge ask as far as being outside the box. It's just a weird time. I will say this is very common for schools on the School District Budget Act to get to the end of the year and be like, okay, we need to get a little bit more headroom before we can move into the end of the year. So it's just an amendment to the budget. So
I would move that we approve the amendment to the budget.
Second.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Flom is absent. Mr. Hammonds?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
And Mr. Vella?
Yes.
all right, Brandon, are you doing the public hearing piece of this?
I will let you
Okay.
take over. You did great.
Well, somebody will have to call the public hearing to order. That I can't do that. I know, or whatever, however that works.
Ginger, would you like to call it to order?
I call the public hearing to order.
All right, so we advertised this public hearing in the Journal Record last week for 3 days, which we're required to by law. And the purpose of this hearing is to hear any public comment about the previously published budget for FY25, school year 24-25. It's been published on our website since June 3rd or June 4th, which is plenty of time per the statutes and requirements of the School District Budget Act. So we would have a space for any public comment or questions and for us to discuss the budget. And then after the public hearing is over, the board will be asked to either approve or not approve the budget for next year.
Is there any discussion? Then do I need to close the public portion public portion of this so the board can move on with its business.
So for everyone in the room that feels like this is silly, if this was a brick and mortar school district where people are voting on the budget for their local brick and mortar school through bonds and all of that, this is an important piece of the puzzle for the School District Budget Act because it gives the public a chance to say something about, you know, that money being spent because it is taxpayer dollars. So in our case, because we don't have elected seats in certain parts of our district or whatever, like a brick and mortar, it seems a little silly, but it is important. In the way the statutes are written, they were written, I don't know how many years ago, 50-something years ago, the School District Budget Act was written, and so we're still following all those rules to make sure that we are in compliance. So the budget for 24-25 is incredibly conservative. And this is a starting point for us to be able to start the year and issue POs for July 1 and get all of our services up and running to start the school year. I 100% expect, just like last year, to come back to you in August or September with another budget, which would be the budget amendment number 2. We could have 3, 4, we could change it every month if we needed to because the School District Budget Act is so flexible, which is wonderful for a school like Epic because tomorrow our enrollment could change drastically for next year. We just don't know yet where it's going to settle. So I have a very conservative enrollment projection, and I have flat funding from the state, and then 19% carryover budgeted. Last year, when we started this year, we came into it with 31.47% at the beginning of the school year from last year. So that's really conservative. Oh, I made somebody sleepy. Sorry, y'all. I think that our carryover at the end of this year will be higher than we budgeted. Our revenue is higher than budgeted because of the increased state aid factor rate. Even the new budget that you approved will probably have more revenue than that. And then we had some unbudgeted federal reimbursements that we don't always know the timing of year over year. So that is, and then our expenses are lower than budget. Learning Fund is going to come in well below budget. We're finalizing those numbers now. The Learning Fund department finished approving all orders on Monday for the whole year, which was that was like a record for us. It's really exciting. And the services department is looking at having them all of those paid by the time we go on break on June 21st, which has never happened. It's really, really quite something. I'm very proud of all of those people on those teams. So we do have some cost savings going into next year, this year to next year, doing things in-house and all of that. All that's been looked at before we made this conservative budget. So the purple is estimated. So that has nothing to do with what you just voted on. It's where I think we might end up. So you're going to see it's well below the budget you just approved. So the conservative budget that we're proposing for revenue is $317 million. This year, $341 million. What we're asking you to approve is the expenditure side. I am estimating that we're going to end the year at around $280 million. You just approved 304, but this is kind of how this works. We get to the end of the year and, we don't need ice removal and we don't need this book that we thought we were gonna buy and this trip was canceled and we liquidate. So the initial ask for the budget for next year is $276,315,748. It's very conservative. I do believe we'll have over a $300 million budget. Bart's telling me we're gonna have 30,000 kids. That's a $315 million budget. So this is about 27,000 kids. So that number should be higher than that. But we just need a starting place. It gives us available funds. We can encumber up to that amount on July 1 with an approval today. So it lets the school finance and business office kind of do what they need to do so that they can support all the other parts of the district. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about the third set of information about the budget that we're looking at today, which is for next year.
If there are no questions, I would move to approve the 24-25 budget.
Second.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Plum is absent. Mr. Hammonds?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Vella?
Yes.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. I love calculus. I just love it. No, I don't love calculus. It's like my favorite. It was every time I watch Denise's work, I love to watch her calculus. Like, it's just very apparent.
we ready for 3F?
We are ready.
Okay, so we lease a building, address shown in 3F, that we house our Heritage Academy, which is our dual immersion program, as well as our Oklahoma City mid-high and high school learning center. And the reason why they share space, I'm going to start with the why, and then Shauna's going to give you the what. When was it? 3 years ago, we were a blended district and a one-to-one district, and we had a learning center, Midwest City Blended Learning Center in Midwest City in Traub Elementary. Then when we merged the two districts, when blended and one-to-one merged and we went away from Rose State, we lost the site known as Midwest City Learning Center. So for a small period of, well, it seemed really long, I'm sure, for a period of time, those students, minus 100, because we lost 100 students in enrollment coming from Midwest City to here. They occupied the space on the southwest corner of this floor. They had to do a hybrid schedule, kind of an A-B type thing, where they were virtual some points and then they would come in on certain days. And then we got to a certain point where the building owners weren't necessarily happy with the amount of student traffic we had, so we moved them to share the space on South I-35 with our new, at that time, Heritage Academy. That was a dual language immersion program that we had just started. So right now we have two of our learning centers, one being the dual immersion and the other being the Oklahoma City Mid-High Learning Center sharing space. But we have other space available that we have leased. It's just not in operable condition to run a school. Okay, so basically what this is in place for is to construct a school type site for us to unshare the space. I don't know what the proper term for that would be. Like we have students in the same building. We have principals that are sharing an office. We are occupying each other's space, if you will. This will open up about 250 total slots, 150 for the dual immersion program that we introduced a couple years ago that we really feel like could take off in South Oklahoma City, and then also open up 125 seats potentially for more blended blended Oklahoma City mid-high students, and be able to serve more of the students really in anywhere in Oklahoma City in that regard on the other side of the building. So that's the why. That's what the reason why we're asking. We had a decline in enrollment when we got moved, and we would like to utilize the space that has been made available to us.
Okay, and in order to do this, we did go through a procedure. We took 3 bids through our construction management team. We have selected a construction company based on those bids, and that is what you have in your packet. And this is one of the floor plans. That we have all of the plans that were needed for the permit, but they get very detailed into all the little things. So I just did the main floor plan, and then kind of gives you a furniture. You can see on the other side that there's where Heritage is, the one that's the lines through it, because we're already in that. This is how the other side will be set up so that we can serve the students, have a large area for cafeteria, have the area with the different classrooms, and of course, always need restrooms. So all of that is in there and will be to code and will be the way that we need it to be in order for it to be a type E building. So that is what the ask on the agenda is for the admired construction.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed what you said. The portion of the drawing that's got the lines through it, that's already existing?
Yes, we're already in that for Heritage, and actually they're both sharing it right now, but one side would move over to the other side once the construction is complete. The demolition has been done, we already have the lease in the building, but this is for the construction. It was a church previously, so.
I'd move that we approve this purchase order. Second.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Flom is absent. Mr. Hammonds?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
And Mr. Vella?
Yes.
Thank you. Did we have anything to pull out of the consent agenda? All right, then I accept a motion to approve.
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Flom is absent. Mr. Hammonds?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Vella?
Yes.
All right, we have to break now for executive session.
We need to vote to go into executive
Okay.
session.
Motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Was that Ms. Myers or Ms. Berry?
Ms. Berry.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Flom is absent. Mr. Hammonds?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Vella?
Yes.
Where are we going?
And we will go to the executive conference room next to Bart's office.
Okay.
Justin?
Okay, we need to return from executive session, so I think vote to return.
Vote to acknowledge returning.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Flom is absent. Mr. Hammonds?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
And Mr. Vella?
Yes.
And I would like to make a.
I've got to make a statement real quick. Only the board members present, Bart Banfield, Justin Hunt, Lynn Stickney, and Brandon Webb were in executive session. Only the item listed on the agenda was discussed. Nothing else was discussed and no votes were taken. So we are on 3A3.
I would like to make a motion to approve all 69 individuals who are applying to continue their education through the Pathways program.
I would second that.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Flom is absent. Mr. Hammonds?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
And Mr. Vella?
Yes.
I would like to move to appoint an ad hoc committee for consideration of future applications of the what's it called?
Pathways.
Pathways program.
Second.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Flom is absent. Mr. Hammonds?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
And Mr. Vella?
Yes.
We can move to adjourn. I move to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Flom is absent. Mr. Hammonds?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
And Mr. Vella?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.